Ефір. Шановні друзі, доброго дня. Я всіх дуже рада бачити. Ті, хто в залі, і ті, хто не в залі. Насправді шкода, що ми не бачимось, але тим не менше, я сподіваюся, ця пора такого гібридного спілкування колись дійде свого кінця, і ми почнемо нормально спілкуватися в офлайні. З нами сьогодні цікаві гості, і перший з них дуже почесний – це голова уряду України, прем'єр-міністр України, пан Денис Шмигаль. Пане Денисе, я вам дякую за те, що ви розпочинаєте, умовно кажучи, в тому числі рік з спілкування з бізнесом. Для нас це дуже важливо, для того, щоб мати належну комунікацію між урядом і бізнесом. Ми розуміємо, наскільки ви зайняті, тому будемо намагатися бути лаконічними з нашими питаннями і будемо раді почути ваші думки стосовно того, як виглядатиме економіка в цьому році, на що звертати увагу бізнесу. Ми з бізнесу передали вам пропозиції стосовно того, що б ми хотіли б змінити. Нам цікаво, чи ми можемо розраховувати на якусь підтримку з боку Міжнародного фонду, валютного фонду. Якщо так, то коли? І що буде з реформами? Прошу.
Доброго дня, шановна Анна. Доброго дня, шановні представники і учасники Європейської бізнес-асоціації. Доброго дня, шановні українці, хто нас дивиться. Насправді, початок року, він, звичайно, завжди є таким багатообіцяючим. Минулий рік був цікавим і неординарним через коронавірус, через всесвітню пандемію, через кризи, з якими ми стикнулися, і не одною. Але він позаду. Ми будемо говорити про цей рік, що нас чекає, як ми будемо рухатись, є перспективи, є надії, тому сьогодні, власне, пропоную про це і поговорити. Перше – це коронавірус, коронакриза, карантин, вакцинація. Це ті питання, які сьогодні найбільше хвилюють людей. І пропоную сьогодні проговорити про те, що перше – карантин ми будемо продовжувати до 30 квітня, але я вже казав, це скоріш за все, на жаль, не кінцева дата, коли карантин буде вже завершений, він скоріш за все буде продовжуватись в тій або іншій формі, можливо, з пом'якшеннями, можливо, він буде адаптивним і буде необхідність в залежності від того, як будуть штами вірусу розвиватися, як буде йти пандемія в світі, він може змінюватись. Тому тут не треба зараз якихось ілюзій мати. Ми все ще знаходимося на етапі боротьби з коронавірусом і очікуємо перемоги цього року, але квітень місяць – це такий, буде показник, як ми будемо рухатись далі. Стосовно вакцин, вони є. Україна, як ми і говорили, вже цього місяця почне вакцинацію за національним планом. Національний план, я сподіваюся, вже всі бачили, всі знають, розуміють. Лікарі, які борються і знаходяться на передовій, це перша група, і далі по групах ми будемо вакцинувати людей. Держава буде пропонувати і має змогу вакцинувати всіх безкоштовно, згідно плану і в почерговості. Але, звісно ж, люди, які будуть потребувати, я не знаю, для туристичної цілі провакцинуватися і будуть мати бажання це зробити, це буде, очевидно, буде змога робити це в бізнес-цілях на платній основі для тих, хто може собі це дозволити і буде мати таке бажання поза чергою там в медичних закладах ці речі робити, в приватних медичних закладах, очевидно.
І вакцини будуть якої якості і наявна кількість буде достатньою?
Зараз про вакцини скажу. Отже, стосовно законтрактованих вакцин на цей і наступний рік, їх повністю достатньо для того, щоб провакцинувати безкоштовно всіх бажаючих, але в порядку черги. Стосовно тих вакцин, які, очевидно, можуть бути для вакцинування власним рахунком тих осіб, які бажають це зробити, їх буде завозити бізнес, це вже питання такого, бізнесу. Я впевнений, що ринок всі ці речі відрегулює. Стосовно якості вакцин, Україна буде використовувати вакцини, у яких підтверджена ефективність не менше 70%. Тобто в Україні будуть використовуватись і ліцензовуватись лише вакцини 70 і вище відсотків ефективності. На сьогодні це там є ряд 5 вакцин, 6 на виході. Фактично вважаю, що ті вакцини на сьогодні є, вони є різних принципів дії, але ними сьогодні користається світ, вже провакцинована певна кількість людей, є перші результати, люди мають право вибору, мають право знати і бачити, як це відбувається, спеціалісти коментують ці речі, інформації стає все більше, Тому вважаю, що вакцинування в Україні, починаючи з цього місяця, це є згідно плану, це є вчасно, тобто це не експеримент, це така абсолютно свідома, зважена позиція починати тоді, коли ми знаємо якість вакцин, коли провірена їх ефективність, коли воно ліцензовано вже в цілому ряді держав світу, коли провакцинована певна кількість людей, ми бачимо результативність. Тобто всі ці речі, вони, звичайно, впливають. Дуже важливо, що соціологічні дослідження показують сьогодні готовність там трошки менше половини України вакцинуватись, ще половина українців вакцинуватись не готова. Це питання, звичайно, комунікації, роз'яснювальної роботи, переконання того, що вакцини якісні, переконання того, що це потрібно. Тобто ця робота буде провадитись. Це дійсно питання комунікації, психології, переконання людей, ну і, звичайно, якості і надійності вакцин. Ось це такий блок по вакцинації. Я вважаю, що
Інсинуації з
він
приводу китайських вакцин, російських вакцин, тобто їх не буде на ринку, чи будуть?
Вакцини, які мають підтверджену якість більше 70%, ліцензовані в розвинутих країнах світу, будуть ліцензовуватись в Україні. Російська вакцина на сьогоднішній день в Україні не ліцензована, про це сьогодні мова не йде, але вакцини, які пройдуть всі 3 етапи клінічних досліджень, будуть ліцензованими, ще раз повторю, в інших країнах, мають право ліцензуватися в Україні. На сьогодні є 6 типів вакцин. Вони знову всі назви всесвітньо відомі. Я не буду їх повторювати. Ми працюємо і законтрактувалися зі всіма виробниками цих вакцин. Ми також маємо контракт з всесвітньою ініціативою COVAX, у відповідності до якої будемо з цього місяця, починаючи отримувати вже також вакцини. Тому з вакцинами вважаю, що питання буквально найближчі тижні буде вже вирішено, знято, і це насправді така перспектива, і це те, що вселяє надію, що вакцина дасть змогу вже до літа зробити світ, зробити Європу більш відкритими. По крайній мірі, люди, які будуть провакцинованими, зможуть подорожувати, зможуть приймати участь в форумах уже не онлайн. І, звичайно, що це надія. І я її також, як і всі, маю, що ми будемо рухатись вперед з такими вакцинами.
Чудово.
Це стосовно вакцинації. Стосовно карантину прокоментував, стосовно медичної готовності, теж важливий момент. Якщо згадати, як ми зустрічали коронавірус весною, ми вели мову про те, що 3000 в день захворілих, це буде неможливо вже витримати нашій медичній системі. Ми пережили дні, коли було і до 30 тисяч захворілих. Сьогодні ми маємо 66 тисяч ліжок під коронавірус, підготовлених і відведених, 55 тисяч ліжок забезпечені киснем. Сьогодні в лікарнях вже менше ніж 18300 станом на вчора було людей хворих із симптомами. На жаль, до речі, кисень, він має 2 складових. Це, з одної сторони, порятунок життів, і в нас дуже багато. Ніколи в історії України так багато кисневих станцій, так багато ліжок, забезпечених киснем, не було. І ось один з прикладів, на жаль, трагічний. Сьогодні вночі в Запоріжжі сталася пожежа через витік кисню. Висловлюю співчуття. Родинам загиблих загинуло 4 людини, 2 людини в важкому стані. І це такий важливий момент, коли з киснем треба поводитись дуже обережно. Тобто, з одної сторони, ми дали забезпечення, з другої сторони, це певна небезпека, і треба вчитися дисципліні і поводженню з таким обладнанням. Тому, підсумовуючи, медична система сьогодні готова. Дякую нашим лікарям принагідно. Вони насправді проявили героїзм в самі складні і морально складні часи, коли не було відомо, що це за хвороба, як вона розповсюджується. Медичні працівники дійсно героїчно робили свою роботу. Сьогодні про цей вірус відомо доволі багато. Лікарі сьогодні спокійно, з таким моральною впевненістю лікують і рятують людей. Це перший самий важливий момент. Другий важливий момент – лікарні забезпечені, підготовлені і медикаментами, і обладнанням. Тому сьогодні ми зовсім по-іншому зустрічаємо вже хвилі цієї епідемії. Теж важливий момент. Ось це, вважаю, такий блок коронавірусу, який був, який є у нас в цьому році. Пропоную на ньому підсумувати і перейти вже до таких більш економічної дискусії. Що чекає нас в цьому році? Цей рік насправді також є перспективним, багатообіцяючим з точки зору росту економічних показників. Всі наші міжнародні партнери, починаючи з МВФ і всіма рейтинговими агенціями, всіма нашими, повторюю, фінансовими міжнародними партнерами, сходяться на тому, що цей рік обіцяє Україні економічне зростання. Партнери розходяться в своїх очікуваннях. Ми на базі аналітики Міністерства економіки, макропоказників Національної академії наук, Національного банку говоримо про те, що ми очікуємо зростання на рівні 4,6% ВВП. Ми очікуємо незначний рівень інфляції. В показниках Нацбанку це 5+1, 6%. Мінекономіки дає трошечки вищий прогноз. Ми зацікавлені в тому, щоб інфляція сьогодні, якщо говорити економічною мовою, розігрівала економіку і давала ще кращі можливості для розвитку і збільшення ВВП не лише на 4,6, а можливо навіть і вище. Важливий момент. Ми структурно продовжуємо і неухильно виконуємо всі наші зобов'язання по впровадженню реформ. Тобто всі реформи рухаються і будуть рухатись, я в цьому запевняю. Ми розпочинаємо, провадимо нові такі реформістські заходи і вживаємо певних дій, змін до законодавства. Важливим моментом є підготовка і підписання меморандуму щодо створення в Україні такого правильного за міжнародними стандартами майданчика для функціонування фондового ринку і товарного ринку, тобто на рівні бірж. Ведемо перемовини про підписання меморандуму з ЄБРРом, з USAID. Також пропонуємо і Європейській бізнес-асоціації долучитись для розробки такого продукту. Це, звичайно, робота така доволі тривала, але якщо ми її не почнемо, то фондового ринку в Україні не буде і ще наступних 30 років.
Then we're not going to be having this work further on. So that is why we are still inviting you to get the work, and we're going to be waiting for developing additional pension system. That means that I'm going to join the president's assembly right now just for us to understand how to do this pension breakthrough without the reform. So it's not going to be really easy for us just, to leave out the solidarity pension system and to build up the overall productive pension system is not going to give us the perspective in the future. So this is something that is very important, and I would like to voice that out as well. Just recently, we've had a directive from the Cabinet of Ministries for the development of the industrial parks, because there is this kind of important tool that works in all of the European countries. Unfortunately, it didn't work for us. So we have to be working on that as well for creating the industrial park. So there is some work that's still happening over there, but we don't want it to be the dead product that doesn't exist in a good way. So we're currently working on industrial parks as well. We're not going to mention the whole amount of the reforms that we're doing, but we're continuing doing that. And we are inviting the professionals in those wide directions. The main work that we're currently doing all together, this is the work on the strategy of development up till 2030. And this roadmap that we currently have discussed, and we have said that our group has been working on that as well. We are engaging the broad businesses, we're engaging the scientific establishments and NGOs, so that the strategy would be the living strategy. We do not want to make just a document for the document's sake. We want to have a clearer understanding of what kind of vision for our state we have in 10 years. So it has to be a relevant and available strategical document for all of the other people. We have given us the answer, what kind of state we would like to have in 10 years in an easy language. But of course, inside of it, in the essence of it, it has to be detailed, it has to be complex, so that for all of our vision, we could get with the right steps with no mistakes made. So that is kind of an intro. Maybe we can just spare the time. Maybe we'll have some questions. Yes, I have lots of questions, and I have a lot of questions, and our members of the associations have a lot of questions. So let us try to pass all of your thoughts. for businesses. You have already answered partly of what the government is going to restore the economy, and during the inflation reforms, maybe there's going to be additional tools that you might use in order to empower the growth, because 4 plus is basically was getting to be the return to the basics that we started last year. So this is going to be the overall growth and restoration. What can we do in order to push it through? So globally, there's going to be the overall cheapening of the resources. I'm going to start with the program 5-9. This is the program that we're continuing to restore, and that is why we're going to be using the hypothec approach as well. And we're going to be using additional programs to support that. And we're going to be using the same thing to developing of the leasings of the welfare and leasing of the residents. We would like to start the 5% through the state hypothec establishment. There is this plan doing on that. And of course, you can see that the National Bank is working. So there is a certain number of directives that have already been approved by the National Bank that have been already to provide the access to the credit resources. So this is going to be one of the main steps. And from what I have heard and from what I have demanded and what the businesses have demanded as well, because without this fast development of economy and resources, there is no opportunity to keep on moving further on. So this is what I'm going to start with. So this is an important moment, the hypothec, then the construction. The construction is the multiplicator of all of the jobs that are available in there. So basically that is going to be a very good economical multiplicator. So this is the opportunity for the small and for the SMEs, and this multiplying program 5-9 is going to be the opportunity for the further on degrees. We have improved the overall percentage recompensations in order to take down the pressure for SMEs. So we are as well mentioning the whole number of the regulatory measures and regulatory decreases. We are continuing the work on the DS City, and I do hope it's going to be one of the best economical tools in the world. Really innovative, really high quality, easy to be used and progressive, and speaking on the business making procedures. And I'm not going to be using this term of the offshore zone, but it's definitely going to be a very good available tool for the businesses. Just keep in mind DSCT, think about this tool, keep on working on that, because it's going to be a breakthrough tool and Ukraine is going to be the leader in this direction. Okay, speaking on DSCT, well, I can say it straight away that business already being learning about this tool, and business are already studying this tool, and we have already given you the information on what are the ideas are. So basically just keep that in mind, because there are some recommendations and struggles, because yes, it gives us some certain stimuli, but let us keep in mind that it will not create additional obstacles for the people who will not going to be using that. Speaking on stimuli, so there is important reforms, the justice reforms, for example. So will there be some changes for that or no? I mean, will it be changes for better or no? This is another question after the access to the financial resources of what business demanded is justice. So basically the good justice system, the just moment for mentioning the cases, the court of justice, the right court, the court according to the international standards. And of course, it is an important tool for engaging the investment for the business development and economy development. Of course, we are currently collaborating with all of our international partners. There are the structural milestones for the IMF programs. This is definitely the main question for all of the ambassadors, for all of the leaders, for all of the countries and partners. So the rule of law is question number one for all of our partners and for us as well. So I guess this is even the most important issue than the access to the financial resources, and it as well important for our businesses. It's not in the governmental mandate, unfortunately, but I would like to tell you and make sure that both the president, the parliament, they're dedicating all of the attention to that. They're developing the draft laws. There are important draft laws. There are important draft law on the Higher Justice Council, and there are in the framework, in the basis of the overall court reform. There is definitely a lot of different anti-corruption legislation that is being developed. There are interconnected with the reforms of justice, and you can see that it sometimes go through the scandalous things or sometimes going through the hot topics and sensitive topics. But I believe that it is an important element for the right system of justice being born in Ukraine. I know that it's impossible to do that in a one day, and I would like to assure you that we're really in depth into this process as we are on our way, and we're not going to turn from this path. We're going to be keep on moving on, bringing our justice system back to order. Okay, the most recent events that has happening in the media space, they're actually showing that there is some serious intentions happening. We're always supporting the just things happening as a transparent business community. Speaking on green energy, there is another question on green energy and the overall investors that invested into this sphere were still thinking whether they would like to invest in this sphere or no. As far as we know, the memo that has happened, the memo that has been signed between you and between the investors, the memo is there, but it's not being implemented fully. That is something that the investors tell us. So how do you see the further on developments of this case? How are you going to resolve the issues of the green energy, of gas market? How do you find the answers to the energy issues? Okay, the energy issues, the basis for the economy. And by the way, I'm going to start with the news straight away. That we've had the same news that the Zaporizhia power plant, that there has been an emergency happening, and there has been a cut out from the energy supply for the population. Yes, there has been an emergency situation, but the energy systems has balanced that. So there has been the cut out from the energy supply for Enerhodar for half an hour. So basically, Zaporizhia heating power plant is currently working. The 2 blocks have already been launched. The 3rd block is going to be launched by today midday. So this is just commenting the news and trying to avoid some fake news spreading. Speaking on energy overall, the memo has been signed. The law has already been approved on fulfilling the memo's requirements. So Ukraine has already taken a different path, and the path that can be called the civilized path, because we have the cases in history when the countries have been breaking their agreements with investors into the green energy or to the renewables energy, and it caused additional arbitrary hearings. We have been through a really hard way, 9 months of mediation, negotiations. We get some certain memos that showed certain agreements made, and we're going to implement it fully from our side. So we're going to implement it. Yes, we're going to fully implement all of the conditions that we have approved. And speaking on the further on payments, there's going to be the first tranche that is going to be delivered on filling in the debt. So there's going to be more than 9 billion that is going to be divided and disseminated between Energoatom and the producers from the renewable resources. So all of these preconditions that we have taken under the memorandum, they're going to be fully implemented and fully covered. So there are some conditions that might change in months or years, but definitely we're going to keep on moving in the civilized direction further on. We are really taking care of the positive image of our state. It is very important for us to keep on having the good relationship with our investors. We keep on moving into the civilized way as we did before. Speaking on the gas issues, and I would like to repeat myself and say that we are moving to the civilized world. The civilized was presuppose using the market conditions, the free market condition. Market conditions is to transform something that we have been working with for 70 years in the USSR and for 30 years in our economy and independence. So we are now taking down the regulated economy. We're going to the monetizations of all of the discounts that we've had. We're going to be speaking about the taxation discounts or taxation benefits. We're going to take down the corruption. And we'll also keep on moving inevitably to this path. Yep, it's a hard way, it's a hard path to take. It's going through some certain transformations, certain speculations on the way. It causes dissatisfaction among the society because, of course, it might be some shocking things that are taking place. Like, for example, the gas prices increase, and gas prices increase has caused the increase of the overall payments for the utilities. Our market is still young. Our market is not fully regulated yet. So as a government, we've needed to put this price gap for February and March in order to protect the people from the really big difference between the prices. We really would like to get to the annual price making. It's going to give them a certain stability for both population and the businesses. It will give the well-balanced price for gas all year long, but it's not going to take away the opportunity for you to choose the monthly tariff. And this is going to be the right for each and every person, as in a shop, to use the different products from different suppliers, to choose their price, to choose their quality. So we are going to the corruptless place, where we do not have the high prices, we do not have the monopolies. This is our way that we would like to take. Unfortunately, it's not that good. It's not that easy. Yes, we are supporting this movement towards the free market. And by the way, the representatives of the energy sphere, they would really like to have a meeting with you in order to discuss this important topics and to get to a certain compromise. Another block of the issues is about the illegal sector of economy and how the government is going to deal with the shadow economy sector, because currently this is one of the important things, important moments for the businesses, the different rules of the games and ineffective work of the executive bodies in order to protect the transparent business making and to protect the even rules. What the government plans to do about that, and whether the businesses should expect the cut down of the shadow economy this year. A very important moment and a very important issue to be posed. So let us just put it this way. The businesses that are working in the legal frame, they're asking us a question. So dear colleagues, up to what time we're going to be dealing with this unjust competition with the shadow sector of economy? So there are some certain steps that we would like to take, some certain quick steps are going to be taken. First of all, according to the decision of the government, we're planning to give this opportunity to have the planned inspections and the inspections according to the risk-oriented system that the tax services have. The tax services is not a law enforcement body, but still throughout this year, the years before, a lot of people, they believe they are not going to be liable according to the legislation, because this time of the lockdown and the pandemic has been used by the gray segment of economy. They have used it, which is very negative and which is really pushing it on the people who work in the legal frame. Yes, an important remark that it would be very, very important for the inspections not to be used for the transparent companies. Yes, that is a very important note, but we haven't seen any critical claims that there has been some inspections happened illegally. Yes, the next point is we have a legislation on creating the Bureau of Economical Safety to be created. We've had a legislation that we have taken down the rights from the other law enforcement bodies to check the economical sphere. Have taken it out of the National Security Services? Yes, we have taken it out. Yeah, so they're not going to be dealing with that anymore. So, okay, we have created the Bureau of Economical Safety. That is going to be the specific law enforcement body that will be dealing with the economical issues. So there's not going to be those masked racketing, or there's not going to be this visits from the different law enforcement officers unexpected. So they were going to take it off all of the law enforcement, and there's going to be just one bureau who's going to be dealing with that, which is very important. Of course, there is the whole number. And by the way, I should mention that as well, because I understand that you have seen those comments on BP. You have seen that the transparent businesses, when they have go through this draft law that has been voted for, and even though we have never seen the final draft, right now we have seen that it's not going to be the analytical body, it's going to be the traditional law enforcement body, and there is too many people, too many employees that are planned for there, and we understand how they're going to take the money for that. And we have no idea why would you create this kind of body in this format. We really like the idea, but the poor moment is that you're taking all of the functions from all of the other law enforcement institutions, or those are going to be like super forces and the monsters against the transparent business. It's not clear what kind of organization you're actually creating. The numbers of employees is much lesser than those people who will lose their job places because we're taking down this mandate. They're not going to be the analytical body because, well, basically, they don't have this processing function. But they're going to be conducting certain investigations. They're going to be based on the analytical skills, of course, but the economical crimes can be very different. And of course, it's going to be the fully capable body with all of the corresponding functions, but the processing actions are going to be delivered to the General Prosecutor's Office. And, there's going to be the clear delegation from all of the state functions, from investigations up till the pre-court pre-court decisions. Still, the economical functions and economical control and inspections will not be available for all of the other bodies and law enforcement institutions. That has been a certain compromise with the members of parliament, and it was really hard process overall of finding the best resolution of this issue. So speaking of the philosophical language, so this is building up the economical control in the state. So, with still it's quite possible for all of us to make mistakes at this very first step. We're going to listen to the comments from the businesses, and we're going to be basing on understanding that the state has to be comfortable entity for the people and comfortable entity for the businesses. And if businesses and European business associations are going to provide us with their constructive recommendations, offers, claims, are going to show us some certain examples, of course, that the government and the members of parliament are going to consider those. Speaking on the regulations on the e-commerce, our position is always clear. For us, as the transparent businesses, we are for providing additional fiscal services for the e-commerce. It's always a very doubtful issue. We know that our politicians are going to are really likely to postpone those issues. But we are really supporting the actions of both parliament and government that we have to introduce that as well. Because we understand that because there is some certain issues are not available for us, there are a lot of economy that's happening in the shadow that are really bad for the state and for the transparent businesses. Thank you. We're really grateful for this position that is a pro-Ukrainian population position, because definitely providing the additional fiscalization stimuli, again, using the additional equipment and the software products for calculating your transactions, is very important. You can upload it to any device that you have and you can use it anywhere it's comfortable for you. This is definitely going to be something useful for the people, useful for the entrepreneurs. It's going to be something that will be useful for the economy, and we can make it popular. Business should promote it as well. Someone who's using it, this is the right thing to do, because it's about the state. It's not about any additional pressure for the businesses, in no way. So we once again asking all of the people who haven't taken a look at this issue yet, please consider what fiscalization will provide you. This is the movement towards the right economy with no additional pressure, and sometimes even creating additional benefits for your enterprise. So sometimes we just have to promote it and learn together. E-commerce, regulating of the e-commerce. How are we going to be working with that? Should we expect some movement this year? Yes, a very important direction. We know that the e-commerce is constantly growing, if not in two-digit figures, but it really grows significantly. And of course, in this direction, there's a lot of work that has been done by both the government and the parliament, and the legislative acts are going to be considered throughout the year. We're going to be providing the consultations with the businesses so that we will be doing the right steps to support the businesses, but that going to stop us from creating any kind of injustice that we have already spoken about. So yes, we are ready to give you our recommendations as well. The questions from the audience: do you have the plan for working with the customs? When we go into the first actions will take place, why do we have still the difference with the price range for the goods that are being imported? I'm always starting these conversations on customs with mentioning my conversation with the previous ambassador of Lithuania in Ukraine, because they have went through the same path that we are currently taking. Before they joined the European Union, they fought the corruption in the customs, and they have told me on how they've made reforms, changed the people, put in the surveillance cameras, 4 cameras that surveyed one another. So we had additional services and additional bodies. When they have fought the corruption? I've asked when we joined the European Union and the customs ceased to be. So, okay, so the only decision for us, the only solution for us is to join the European Union. Yes, that's a good offer. But, when there are borders, when there are customs, then it's not only for us, it's for all of the people, then that for all of the countries, these problems exist. But basically, we are really planning to do the reform for the customs. You can see that there is a really complex period of transformation transformation. There had been 4 directors that have changed throughout the couple of last years. We never reached the results that we were aiming for. So we are still collaborating with our international partners, with the European Union, with the US, with our international partners. We're working on the structural reforms of the customs. And of course, we have now the different head of the customs. They are building their organizations on the level of the regional custom offices. And I do believe that is going to be happening in the recent times. You're going to see that there's going to be the first changes in the employees of the customs. So we are going to introduce the risk-oriented system, the negotiation-based work, and providing the joint control on the overall customs checkpoints. There's going to be starting some certain educational and training programs for those employees of the customs service that are just only beginning their work. So at this very moment, the head of the customs office is a very strong manager, and he's not that integrated into the system. We really wanted to have the person to. Now we have the customs, the main custom officer for Ukraine is now the head of the Borispil airport in the past. So basically, we just wanted to have a person with a different corporate culture. We wanted him to start the different corporate culture. Thank you for this formulation. The different corporate culture in the customs. So yes, thank you for that. So basically, yes, this number of measures is going to help us to at least cut out the corruption by 80%. So taking down the people, introducing additional scanners, introducing additional control measures, and what is very most important, the risk-oriented system. When we understand that basically all of the businesses, they have to go through the transit, they have to provide the customs fee at their warehouses, and that works. The risk-oriented systems really works well. I do believe that is going to be working in all of the developed countries, and it will work for us as well. We're working on that. We're doing this work, and actually we've had this 2 meetings with the head of the customs, and we have discussed those really important things that will provide us with the fast results, and the businesses should feel that. Okay, I'm keeping up with the timing, and I know that in 12 minutes you have to have the meeting with presidents of this. For the final 2 minutes that we have, I want to raise the question about the logistics, because the logistics is a very important issue for the businesses and very important for the export potential of our country. The questions from businesses: are you going to decrease the port fees? Are you going to be providing the decreased payments to the budget from the port services? What are we going to do with the railways? When we're going to have the legislation on the railway transportation available, and the stimulus for the development of the air flights. Okay, logistics, roads, bridges, we're building that. We're going to be working on additional checkpoints. The ports, this is an analytical issue. I'm not ready to answer that because we're currently counting, the budget for this year has already been approved and there's not going to be any significant changes to that. But in order to calculate that and to increase the flow and to increase, and in this way, to increase the flow and to decrease the port fees because of that, then yes, we have discussed that. I have been participating in those discussions. We're continuing that work, and we're going to be asking the businesses to join us and to provide their offers. So please provide this offers to the ministries. Yes, we have already passed it. Mr. Vladislav has it all. So yes, okay. So yeah, we have started this conversation with Vladislav, and yes, of course, it's very relevant at this moment. So I would just like to mention that yes, we have this dialogue there. And okay, let us have another question. Okay, so the railway and the avia connection. We're working on the legislation on the railways, the air connections. We are working on that, and we are looking for the ways of how we can support the how we don't know, have the direct support. Like, for example, we cannot support, for example, Lufthansa but we are having and discussing some measures of how we can support the main operators of our airlines and air flights. We had 3 meetings already. We have discussed the possible way for the support of the airlines. We know that the airlines have been affected by the lockdown, and of course, all of the countries are supporting our air carriers, and we're going to be supporting them as well. We're planning to do that. There is a question of justice, just for us to find the balance for the support of one industries and not to lose their attention for the other industries. Yes, timing is very strict, so I will just have to show you the exit at this very moment. I'm really grateful that we've had this moment to communicate with you. So really, we're really hungry for communicating with smart people. So that is why I do believe that this is the first meeting for us, but not the final meeting for us this year. I'm really grateful to all of our friends for joining us online and offline. Thank you very much for joining us here. And I do hope that quite soon we're going to have the good communication further on. Yes, thank you very much for this communication. I'm really sorry that it didn't take so much time. So I'm always ready for the dialogue, and I'm always ready to answer the questions. So please invite me more. And if it will have just online, it will be a faster format for all of us. And I do hope that we'll be able to make, the eye-to-eye meetings more frequently, because you can feel the energy better this way. Thank you very much. Well, I wish you all the good health, and thank you very much for having this opportunity to talk to one another. So, friends, please stay with us. 5-7 minutes more. We're going to have the continuation of our discussions with a very interesting panel, and they're going to be as well commenting to what you have said. Thank you very much. Один, два, три.
Шановні друзі, доброго дня ще раз. У нас продовження нашого
So, dear friends, we're pleased to welcome you further on to our today's communication, and I believe that we're going to have even the better next part because the number of our speakers for today's panel is going to be really high for us, and I would like to introduce you with our guests, and we're going to start from this round to go into that corner. First of all, please welcome Ilya Kingustein, the head of this project, Native States. And by the way, we have got to you, and we're really happy to be working in your space. Zorana Tsirek, the head of Pfizer, and it's going to be very interesting to learn from your opinion about the vaccination and everything that's happening right now. Marek Tamalak, the head of PepsiCo, thank you very much for your support of our today's event, and thank you very much for all of those activities that you conduct in Ukraine. Tomasz Fiala, I think there was no additional ways for me to introduce him, the head of association, the head of Dragon Capital in Ukraine. Taras Kitsmins of Surf, the IT businesses, I think one of the few, or at least one of the fewer people who are currently growing in the fastest pace, and the IT businesses are growing in the fastest pace. Thank you very much for joining us. Andriy Horakhov, the UAMG company, the representative of our hard industries, and I believe that's very important for us to listen to your opinion as well throughout our global outlook. And I do believe that you're going to be adding up additional issues for us. Thank you very much for supporting this event. And Vadim Sidoruk, the DHL company, the head of the company, and you have been working with us as the member of our board. And by the way, I would like to ask you to consider this offer and opportunity as well. And your issues on logistics are going to be very important for us to consider, just to feel the pulse of economy, because that's important. And it is something that we can see. The pulse of economy can be seen from the logistics. We had to be joined by Timofey Milovanov, not Yulia Svorodenko, because she's now been in the meeting with the president, but I do hope that Timofey Milovanov will show us the position of the president as well. And I think it will be very interesting to listen to his thoughts about education, because he's a curator of the educational direction. I'm looking at Tomasz and I'm asking him, what should we expect in the macroeconomical issues this year? Well, what will you actually give us an advice? Where should we invest and where should we invest not? Okay, thank you, Anna. Good evening, good morning to everyone. And I'm going to continue on this optimistic approach that the Prime Minister has set for us today, because we've met in November, as far as I remember, and my colleagues, they have given an upgrade of our economical expectations overall for the 2020 and 2021. And just 2 weeks ago, this very optimistic forecast has been updated and improved even better 2 weeks ago. So that is why overall in Ukraine, I think you have watched a different company, because that's yes, they have seen the good results of the Dragon Capital and they saw that we should broaden this forecast. Yeah, the results are quite good, but the overall Ukraine has surprised us, and the final data on the GDP are going to be published only on the 15th of February. But according to this data that we currently have in 11 months and what we have seen in December, and for what we have seen already, that the government has managed to work with the COVID-19 and have surpassed the lockdown to January, that is the weakest economical months. It's very good that the government has listened to the businesses and they've made this lockdown with the minimum economical effects. So what we're expecting to see, we have seen the decrease of GDP last year by 4%, only by 4%. So we do believe that next week on the 15th of February, we're going to have the official data from the State Statistics Energy. We'll just see whether the forecast will be the same. We have seen the results overall in Europe. So the Poland has fallen in around, have shown the big fall. So we have like minus 6.8% for overall the European Union. And the European Union has shown, like the 28 countries have shown the 7% of decrease of economy last year. So I think that Ukraine has shown much better results for the 2020. And if we will just consider whether our forecast will be fulfilled, so in the fourth quarter of 2020, we have already reached the level of the GDP of the fourth quarter of the 2019. So we actually restored the pre-COVID level of the GDP, which is very good. So we are one of the few countries with that, because the global GDP is overall on the lower level of the pre-COVID measures, and it's going to reach the pre-COVID level at least in the middle of 2021. For example, the European Union shows this -5 degrees. It's 5% lower. So how do you connect that? How do you see why it's the reasons that Ukraine has managed that well? Well, we had a very strict lockdown in March and April, one of the strictest lockdowns, and the GDP has decreased by 12% at that moment. But in the third quarter, we had a very quick restoration happening, and basically it turned out that throughout the second quarter, the overall income of the population hasn't decreased significantly. So they have even increased in the real calculations, if I'm not mistaken, for around 8%. So the overall, with the retail sales grown by 8%, so overall consumption of the population has grown as well. And it really helps to show this kind of result. Plus, there has been really hard deficit of the budget, 5.9%. The overall deficit of the budget, it supported the investments overall. So the big construction and project as such, they really helped. And the investments of the private sector, they have decreased. What actually really helped us to go through this crisis is that we have been really smooth. So on the macroeconomical status, we didn't have the big difference in the currency rates, that the banking sector has really survived nice. So the deposit level of deposits has grown by 30% in the results of the year. So those reforms that have happened after 2014, they have really helped us to go through this crisis of the second quarter of 2020. It really helped us to go through this crisis with much better results than the crisis that we had in 2014, 2015. So in this case, our economy and macroeconomy has already been ready for that. And plus, considering this idea, there's this second wave of COVID that happened during the autumn season that was really negative for the European Union, and many countries like Germany, Czech Republic, the UK, they were forced to introduce the very strict lockdowns. Fortunately for us, the second wave has not appeared to Ukraine, whether because of the low level of testings or whether we just do not see that. But overall, in November, when there was a beacon situation for the second wave in Europe, then we can just take a look at the statistics that we've had around 16,000 deaths. Overall, there we have 16,000 deaths more, so we had around 500 people daily dying more than before. So let us not talk about the sad things. Yes, but yes, there was as a result of COVID. So yes, if we are speaking about what we can see now, so we can now see there's only 27% of the beds have been taken in the hospital, something that the Premier has said before. So the situation is overall quite good. This year, there is an idea that there's going to be no strict restrictions to be introduced that will influence the economy badly. So speaking on the last year and speaking on this year, so yes, we have had this upgrade on the GDP forecast. If the government forecasts 4.6, so we believe there's going to be 5.3% of the GDP growth. It will cause the overall GDP up to $170 billion. This is going to be the comparable number with 2013, even though we lost the part of our territories and the part of our economy. The inflation is going to be higher, 6.5%, the deficiency of the budget, 5.2%. The debt of the GDP is not going to be growing, it's going to be on the level of 60%, and the level of currency rate is going to be on the level of 28 hryvnias, and the average rate is going to be 27.2. We're speaking about the USD, yes, the US dollars. This is going to be the average rate for the 2021. In the 2020, we had the average course 26.96. So this is going to be the devaluation of the average course by 1%, is a very sustainable and is very stable. This is the rate that we had in 2017, 2018. So we have a little bit of better standing here. So we are expecting it all to be sustainable and stable. And speaking on our investment, then if we will speak about that, less in second quarter, we have postponed and paused some of our agreements. We still have not expecting what the COVID will end up with. There are some changes in the national banks that has really frightened us, not because of the people that have been approved to this position, but because of these arguments that have been used and reasoning that have been used by the members of parliament for the change made. If you remember that there are certain members of parliament and the members of the supervisory board of the national bank, they've said that there needs to saturate the economy with money to try to stop the inflation. Happily, fortunately, it never happened. So right now you've calmed down. Yes, like the new management, the new council for the new supervisory board of the national bank, they're continuing the policies of their predecessors. So there's no big changes in monetary or fiscal policies from what the government is responsible for. We do not see any big shifts in that. And right now, what we have seen that has been a very nice and promising steps by the president and his team in, for example, closing the television channels that have been working on Russian propaganda and promoting Russian propaganda. That's a very positive step. And we support that as well, because we believe that that kind of television channels should not be working here in Ukraine, because we are in war with Russia. So there's no channels promoting Russian propaganda in point of view should not be there, and the exclusion of some certain members of parliament from the Servants of the People Party that are under the sanctions of the US. So we see the bad aggressive policies in the office of the president. So this is basically the blast of interest that are blocking the reform and the judicial reform as well. So for some of the cases, we have already closed them, even in the even the last year. So we are currently at the stage of closing of the 5 deals together with our co-investors, with the Western foundations, and around the overall amount of $5 billion. And we do hope we'll be able to close those deals in the first half a year. So we're going to get to the same level of investment that we had pre-COVID. Well, that sounds very optimistic. So, I'm going to leave IT till the end, because basically you're going to close our panel with optimism. Let us ask Timothy. Timothy Milovanov has just joined us, so let us put a question to him. So you have already heard that there is some certain optimism, well, at least from the point of view, from Tomasz's point of view and investors' point of view, how you can command that, how you can command that such overall situation for this year, what the businesses should expect. I know that you are sitting in 2 chairs. On one hand, you have this overall, the advisory of the office of the president's head, and you're working in the educational sphere. So maybe you can discuss both spheres. Yes, thank you very much. I have slides, and I'll try to be very, very brief, just to be providing you the examples of what we're going to be talking. I actually agree with Tomasz. Can we just put the slides on? Can I have the second slide straight away? So basically, the first thing that I wanted to mention, and I'm speaking on behalf of the office, if we will take a look at Ukraine, Ukraine has fallen lesser than it was planned or than it was expected. So I'm going to switch to either Ukrainian or English. So, for example, there wasn't a very critical forecast, but the forecast has been at the level of 8%. It never happened. And you can see that the forecast for the next year has been quite pessimistic for the IMF. But basically, that is going to be depending. The government has said 4.6, and Kiev School of Economy also has shown that it's going to be more than 5. So, yes, basically, we are agreeing upon that Ukraine is restoring better than it has been forecast, and at the same time Ukraine has fallen that in a lower level than it has been forecast. It doesn't mean that everything is good. There are some specific industries and specific enterprises that have been influenced in a bigger way. So this is the overall average understanding. So there is some certain needs for the industries and clusters, and we're going to discuss it in the end. So what are our thoughts about that? For us to have a better understanding, what can we discuss? It's not a already ready-made fact that everything will be done, but just for you to understand what the office thinks of economy. Maybe that will be good for you as well. Let us have the next slide, please. This slide on the left, you can see the year-to-year fall of the GDP, and you have seen that has been the biggest fall was in the second quarter 2020, minus 11%, and we believe that the peak of the fall has been at this very moment. Again, according to the evaluation of the Kiev School of Economy, the lockdown has given minus 1% in the annual understanding. 3-4% of the downfall in the GDP was because of the behavior of the actors inside of Ukraine, outside Ukraine, both physical entities, legal entities, and businesses overall. But the lockdown hasn't provided that strong effect, and if it, for example, had been continued, if the lockdown of weekends has given 0.14% of the GDP fall down, and if we had this 2 weeks lockdown, that it will be 4 weeks, it would be 0.3%. So now we have already non-compliant economies in this SME. So there is a hit, but it's not a very strong one. But a lot of businesses have actually confirmed to that. So we want us to be non-compliant? No, we want you to be compliant. But, there's reality and in reality. So, I'm not a public officer. I'm just only going to be the free-time advisor. So, I can be speaking much more and giving out more opinions. It's not my case to go through the businesses saying whether you should comply or not, because you all know what's happening in the field. So, some cities that not in Kiev that are fully non-compliant. Yes, so it's we see that, but the question is what the system does about that. Yes, okay, so that is why we're growing at a faster pace, because there's a lot of people are non-compliant with the rules. Yeah, we're not going to mentioning that. But there is a big question on why objectively the overall death level and death toll in Ukraine is lower than in the other countries. Yes, we have to understand what will be the attribution of it, what is the COVID based or what is not. But there is, for example, there's more attention to the COVID. Some patients that required additional support, they haven't been provided with the support for the planned operations or planned surgeries, for example. There will be the increase of the death tolls in these segments. But the overall, we can see the level of the casualties is much lower than among our neighboring countries. But you do not know why it's happening. Yes, we have a couple of hypotheses concerning the behavior, concerning that, this disease is being spread at the super events. So there was anti-masking protest or big communities or the church meetings, communities that ignore, for example, all of the measurements. So if the behaviors of Ukrainians have reacted to that in some certain ways, even not through the legislative measures, but for example, people try to be a little bit more careful, then yes, maybe that is because we have the lower level of the people who are currently being ill. So maybe we had a lockdown before, and in Kiev School of Economy we have some model, the epidemiological model, that shows that the strict lockdown at the very beginning of the year has saved around 100,000 people. So we would have not 20 deaths, but we had 120,000 deaths. We could have saved those 20,000 people if in September and August, September, even at the very end of July, then we could have saved even additional 2,000 people. So that would be the postponing still. So you cannot speak of people like that, but the first lockdown has saved 100,000 people. And all the next time there's going to be the balance from the other side, and people do not talk about that. If the population become poorer, especially this, epidemiological tail, when people do not earn a lot. So when you are locked down in the economy, they do not achieve income. It's not going to happen from the very beginning, but some people will not have this care, will not have the surgery made, the one you need to have the bribe to have the surgery made. So there has to be a balance there. It's not like we're saving life but closing the economy instead. But let us get back to inflation. On the right, you can see there is a forecast that we're going to be out of the main indicator in the end of 2021, but we're going to get back and restore to 2022. The overall indicator 5.1%, but we can be less optimistic than Tomasz is. He said that inflation might be higher, but we expect that this is going to be a temporary factor and we're going to be restored. So we expect the National Bank as an independent institution. We do hope that, and we support that, not going to be increase the overall rates. But if the inflation are going to be growing and the expectations of the inflation will be growing, then they're going to be forced to do that as well. The state budget deficit and deficiency of the state budget, 5.4%, much lower than it has been forecast. For the next year, the plan is 5.5, so we will just check it out whether the situation is going to be like that, then the actual might be lower. On the right, you can see the state and the guaranteed state debt percentage to GDP till 2015. It has now decreased to the maximum level. In 2019, it has grown to 68%, and currently it falls up till the 64% in 2021. The fiscal situation is stable right now. By the end of the year 2020, you know that has been a hole in the budget, and we have mentioned that the Ministry of Finance have their own plan, but it's complex, it's realistic, but it's not really planned. We can't see that whether it will be fulfilled, but we have seen that it will be fulfilled. How are we working in the office right now? We're monitoring certain directions, and I am giving myself a markers like green, yellow, or red regimes. If the yellow regimes, it requires attention. If it's red regime, then the office of the president has to intervene. And for the next months, a month and a half, we're going to be evaluating the situation with the budget as the green regime, depending, of course, with the IMF mission that are currently being held. The negotiations are being held right now, but we can see the two critical points right now is March and September. So this is going to be the two periods that we're going to take under control. But okay, when do you expect the tranche of IMF happening? Right now, the mission has been continuing. The problem is in the anti-corruption legislation. You know, there's three directions. We have the law on the imprisonment for the incorrect declarations. So, and we have the legislation on the National Anti-Corruption Bureau. How the IMF sees and how we would like to see, it's like we do not know whether we'll have the voices to support that in the parliament. It can be done, but it's not actually sailing through. So we can see what the situation is in the parliament. So that is why we have negotiations from all of the sides. It's not just the IMF and the Office of the President, IMF and the Cabinet of Ministries, but overall. So what can be done in real life? There is the budget. They have some questions on the budget. I cannot comment upon the deals, but everyone is talking about that. It's not a secret. So there are the issues to the years to come, you know, to the slide on the right, on how we're going to get to the overall trajectory of 2-3% of the budget deficiency, but not 5%. And what are going to be the measures taken to that? But what do you expect? Will we have the money this year? Yes, we will have the money this year. Yes, but like how it's going to be done? Yes, but I'm always very careful. Just like I've said with IMF, whether it's happening or no. But yes, like possibly the mission will come, but the tranche will not happen. At the end of last year, I'm going to say that by the end of the year, we will not have the tranche happening. Objectively, we're not going to get for this tranche in February. It might quite possible in March, but it will depend on negotiations in the anti-corruption agenda. That is very important. The energy is on the table as well, 699. That's very important things, but those decisions, then I'm sorry for getting, I'm like thinking in English and I'm trying to translate that. So they're going to be expiring in March. And if it's going to be happening and there will be no political things happening around that, there was not going to be the problem. The one problem that will be that the energy has the structural problem, an energy market and gas markets, and we have monopolies, we have disbalances, we have financial disbalances and technical problems that we have. You have seen the news, like for example, yesterday, that there have been connected to this idea that we have to take a more systematic look on these markets, and the IMF will consider them as well. We do not have the fully capable Minister of Energy in place. And by the way, Bahia is not in the position, well, you don't have enough voices to support. So there is, you know, this constantly the position changing. But you're going to continue. I am not working with the already positional decisions. I have a very easy strategic that it really improves your health life. And so the farther you go with the positional decisions, then it's much trust I have. The more trust I have, and the longer life cycle I will have. Yes, but speaking on the employment, speaking on the position, that is an issue for businesses. Well, I'm not eager to question that. I can't answer that. So, but the overall, that's an issue. The situation with an NBU is currently monitored. There are some already advice for the National Bank of Ukraine to be taken, and the National Bank of Ukraine continues its policy. Tomasz has already said, but we are expecting with that said. So, do we have any more slides? No. But okay, so you're not going to stop me. So okay, but you have more slides. No, like it depends on how much slides you want. So basically, yes, the construction is the driver of economy. It's not a secret, but we will just skip that things, I guess. But that overall, even this year, trade and construction, even this year, they have grown. That's a very interesting thing, but all of the other industries have fallen. This next slide on the unemployment rates, we expecting it to raise to 9.8%. We had 8.5, and it will restore to a level of 8 and 5 in year or two. Like said, like you're just like like you're going to be sitting somewhere there abroad, but no, like the unemployment rate will get. So this is my bad Ukrainian, but I think there are some programs needed and the attention to the SMEs for those industries that have been hit hard by the pandemic, because the industry has been hard, but it still worked. But we have some certain directions that were really hit hard, like the restaurants, the shops, the retail. So it's not only the support throughout the pandemic and lockdown, but the overall. The next slide is about the IMF. Okay, we have already paused the IMF. But yes, but what we expect, there will be that the problem of the social distances will be irrelevant for us throughout the year. It will influence the business as well. So the restoration of the businesses will be dependable on the vaccination graph because of the reasons on COVAX. Our quota is even higher than what has been promised. For the commercial part, the quota is really weak. There are geopolitical notions, and there are some companies that really would like to earn on the scarcity of the resources available for the vaccines. But it's really hard for us to identify it. If the supply will be increased in the recent 3 months, that it will be able for us to launch the vaccination faster, and we will restore the economy, and we will restore the people's behavior and the business activities that will be needed for the final on development. So yes, the final slide that I have, that we're really lucky with the financial sector. It hasn't fallen this time because of those painful reforms that have been launched before, and we should not forget about that. It was the first crisis in Ukraine for the 30 years when we'd never had the banks falling, because every time when we have the crisis in real sector and it causes financial crisis on all, it starts with the financial and goes to the real sector. It's just the complementary powering of the crisis. Right now we had a crisis in real sector, but financial sector was strong, and we had macroeconomical stability that really helped us, not that brightly as in the sustainable country, but to provide some help for the real sector of economy. Yes, and we can do a good example, a good conclusion in that yes, you have to do the painful changes and structural reform that will work out for the future. Yes, right, you are. The three things, the structural reforms are important. Financial market is a very good example. Historically, just for the first time in 30 years, we never seen the financial crisis. The economy has fallen lesser than expected and restores in a faster pace. Yes, that means that we are more resilient, but the bad news is that we have this excessive capacities with dealing with crisis and businesses. So maybe basically we are investing our skills, our business skills, into how to deal with crisis situation, but not how to develop new products and how to work with the system. So the third point that we have seen, that the restoration really responds to whether the people are going to get back to business as usual, and that will be really dependable on the vaccination.
Чи ви можете українською, чи російською?
Украинский, российский будет
Окей.
сложно. Мне кажется, намного проще по-английски, если можно.
Ага, okay.
I think
So, do you see any changes in last year behaviors of people? Did COVID really change something in the minds of people, and how it's impacted your business, and what's your outlook for the future?
Right. So obviously it's very inspiring to hear the very positive assessment of the last year and the very positive outlooks of the coming year. I think from the perspective of PepsiCo, we try to look perhaps a different set of the KPIs. I think I don't need to introduce PepsiCo. I hope our viewers know the company and the products we sell. But I think the most important product that we produce and create is not Pepsi, it's not Sandora, it's not Lay's, it is the smiles. And that's called our corporate mission. We create smiles, and the smiles for our consumers who have been under pressure last year, who have been smiling less, and that's objective data that we see. The confidence of the consumers in Ukraine has deteriorated significantly, and actually much more than many other countries and markets. We want to create those smiles again. So obviously with our job will be to offer them the right value. Consumers will remain under pressure, and we'll make sure that we can offer them what they can afford and what they can enjoy, including the growing portfolio of the healthy products with zero sugar and all naturals. The other smile we try to create is the smiles of our suppliers. And the suppliers that have been going through the last year have been also under pressure. When we partner with farmers across Ukraine who provide us with potatoes for our chips, who provide us with milk for our dairy products or for fruits, we know that many of them have been under pressure given the extra cost they had to incur, given the uncertainty of the markets. So the job for us is to actually create a much more sustainable relations. And as we now develop the programs in Ukraine, we source our potatoes in Ukraine, we want to invest in the partners and grow them so that they are more resilient to that stress of the fluctuations. The next obviously big smile we want to make is the smile on the faces of our retail partners. Away from home channel has suffered significantly last year. We have been seeing this across the full year. Many of the small accounts have been also suffering. Many of the small stores have been closing. And our job as the big company and big industry altogether is to help them develop the business, invest in their business, and teach them how they can generate more revenues as we go forward. And then finally, it is about the smiles of our employees. In PepsiCo, we enjoy the smiles of 3,500 employees who we obviously value for their diversity, and we develop them with the best European standards. But protecting their safety has been the big thing for us last year. But we went beyond that. And the job for the companies like ours is to give the people feeling that even when they work remotely, they are not alone. We made a lot of effort to actually engage our employees in the dialogue. We use obviously the technology, but it goes beyond the technology into the psychology of working together in the new reality. And that was a big bet for us to make safe. So with all those, as I reflect on the choices for this year, one extra caveat came to our list: the global commitment for climate that PepsiCo has been making. Sustainability is an agenda for PepsiCo for many, many years, and we have been making bold statements and targets for ourselves. Only 2 weeks ago, we made a statement that we will eliminate all the greenhouse gases emission. We'll bring them to zero by 2040. This is a long glide path, and this means reduction across the value chain. So it includes partnership with our partners. And I think that's a brilliant idea. Now, the challenge for me is to think how I can deliver my operating results in 2021 and combine this long-term bet. But as I reflected on those, it seems that actually this is a mutually reinforcing synergy. As we look about the sustainability of the economy, sustainability means all the aspects I mentioned. Sustainability in the sourcing. As we partner with the local suppliers for potatoes, for the milk products, and for the fruits and vegetables, we invest in them to be more sustainable, to have better warehouses, to sustain the products fresh, to have the shorter delivery routes. We don't bring the potatoes far away. And we try to make sure that whatever they do to agriculture process, it becomes more sustainable. We reduce water consumption, we reduce the other stimulation to the agriculture to make it much more sustainable. It is about the sustainability in the way we manage our waste. And my big passion is reducing the waste of plastic that we have. The PepsiCo mission is to make plastic never go waste. And we actually intend to make the fully recyclable bottles already in the 2024, or actually fully recyclable all packaging that we have. And in Ukraine this year, we will be piloting the first inclusion of rPET, so recycled package, the bottle made out of previously existing bottles. And it is a big step. The challenge here is that while we make that effort, and I know many companies, international companies, push for that effort, this can also turn into big stimuli for the economy. Right now, in order for us to make the rPET bottles, we have to import them from abroad. Why on earth we cannot find a supplier who can bring the food grade rPET in Ukraine, which is such a great opportunity for making business. We are now working on the process of EPR, so enhanced producer responsibility, for us to collect and recycle the waste. And again, we will be looking for partners who are able to help us collect and recycle and sort the waste. There is a lot of business opportunity in those. And then I think last not least, we are constantly trying to improve efficiency of our manufacturing. The manufacturing process now has been reducing the use of water, energy, gas, but I think there is a lot of work to do ahead of us. Ultimately, we want to come to the zero energy consumption from outside, so fully renewable. We have already, I think, 12 markets across Europe who operate fully on renewable energy sources. 12 of our plants across Europe have their own renewable energy sources installed, like photovoltaic plates, like the biogas masses. And this will be another opportunity for us to make the business more effective because it will be cheaper ultimately, but also a big opportunity for the companies around to participate in this ecosystem of the sustainability. So wrapping it all up, I think the last year has been difficult for the consumer suppliers and retail partners, but we are committed to make them smile constantly and build this business long term. And I think sustainability, a big piece of our agenda, can be both is a big commitment for us, but also a big potential stimuli for growth for us, for Ukraine, and for the business. So that's the big bet.
So it looks like that you would like to, not would like to, obviously you would like to, but it looks like your business really grows despite of everything.
We grow the shares, we grow our strategic categories. There was challenges on certain categories which were more or less exposed, but overall we are positive, and the results for this year will be a rebound, both based on the great transformations we have been doing over the last months, but also the hopeful rebound of the market that we look forward to.
So it's really very nice. And when it comes to the staff, are you going to save the whole staff without any changes, or you would like to cut that? There is no reason for that, obviously, right? Because quite often we are raising that.
I think the question is different. The question is, how do we evolve the ways of working going forward? Because obviously with the crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And with the crisis, we accelerated many transformation jobs that we have been doing. We employ now much more of the technology in the processes. We try to work remotely. And with that, we figure out that many of the meetings were actually not needed. We can make the things faster. And I think it is more question of reallocating resources when they create most value, because the way we have been doing will not come back. We have to get used to it.
It will not come back. Full stop. That's good. Good to hear. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna.
Let's move forward. Андрей, давайте спросим вас,
Andrei, let's get to you. What your situation? What kind of lessons you've learned last year that you can use further on in the further perspective? What has changed for you? Just a couple of numbers to start with. I'm really grateful to the first two speakers. They have given us the outline of the domestic markets and the foreign markets. Tomasz have said there will be 6.8%, and remember that the US, they said 3.5%, and the China has grown by 2%. But we also should say that the last year we had a very good overall situation in agriculture and metallurgy. The GDP has been improved by the very significant numbers. No one has expected those figures at the very beginning of the year. So yeah, there is some certain logic behind that. And the certain number of our product has been provided to China. So when you speak about the real situation, and so there is very different situations and businesses. So, you know, we have a half full glass in here. So in speaking on China in 2021, there are some certain risks considering some certain situations in Ukraine and considering the sanctions that we've had in the Chinese companies. I don't know how the Chinese will react to that. The Chinese are already worrying about that. Well, we're going to be vice. We're going to be vice in our next steps. Okay, but what would you advise to work in that? I'm not a politician. We had more experienced people here, politicians here, who will be able to answer that. But still, from what I know, I do know that if there's overall, if I can be mistaken in the overall numbers. So it's around $10 billion. So overall with China. So you have to be very careful with this kind of partner. So we know that in 2020, and in 2021, this market really plans to grow, and basically, so Europe and the US up till the middle of this year, they're going to be restoring their economy from pandemic, and still it will be really dependent on the vaccines and the effectiveness, because there's some uncertainty, and let's be honest, there is a level of uncertainty. No one really knows what is going to be happening, because basically before that, if we're speaking about the Western region, that's the previous, this kind of big pandemic has happened 100 years ago. A lot of things have changed. And by the way, Andrew, that's a very important comment on China and comment on the overall situation and struggle between China and the US, because the number of our members who have the Chinese origins, they have already said, informally yet, but they've already said that they're, let us say, disturbed, and they put on hold all of these issues on investment to the country. And that's a very interesting moment, and I'm really sincerely would like to learn what would you advise Ukraine to do concerning that both of the partners are really cool and important partners for Ukraine, and how to do not to hurt the feelings of our partners, but to have our interests protected. I fully understand your concerns, and if you can take my mic. So if for example, we're going to have some mistakes in this direction, then we will just have to understand how we're going to compensate our markets, understanding the situation in Europe and in the States and these uncertainties with the pandemic. So I do hope that we will have some really good decisions here in place, and I think that the people will be very professional about this issue. So all of the reforms that have been made in the financial and in the banking sectors, they are really good, and I would like to agree to that the financial stability inside of the country is the outcome of the reforms that they have been made. But there is a very bad number, the 42% of NPL that are still existing in the country's economy. I see that there is the ideas to do something about it. It has already been voiced out, but nothing has been done yet, as far from what I know. So the second risk is always there, as far as I understand. So I'd really hope that we will have devised decisions of how to deal with that in 2021. Speaking on the expectations in Ukraine, so yes, positive expectations here, and even though I understand that there's a lot of things that will really be depending on the geopolitical situation and on the situation outside of Ukraine, it wouldn't really like to be involved into those conflicts of interests, where we should not be included into that, because that's really expensive for all of us. Speaking on the businesses for the 2020, we have invested, and we've invested actively. That was a record year for us, and the investments, a lot of cases have been closed in 2019 and then have been finalized then, and all of these agreements that we have worked on in 2021, we have finalized them in 2020, and in 2021 we see very optimistic forecast on that. The portfolio of our investments has really worked well. We have seen the slight decrease by 10% compared to the previous year, and they have had, it has been the overall downfall in all over the world, and in Ukraine in many businesses. That's a very good result, because we have now caught up to the quarter 3 and 4 and by our financial results. So that is why we have the overall optimistic forecast, and we do believe that there is going to be the economical strategy implemented by 2030. And I would really like to see in the practice in how fast that's going to be changed in 2021. Based on that, I'm really happy for this high liquidity that is currently exists in the external markets. And I'm really happy that there is the lust for the tool that will continue in empowering the liquidity, and that the international investors have come up to our bonds, to our equities. Speaking of the foreign direct investments, we know that the previous year has been really hard for all of us. We know that the number was close to zero, even negative in some points. But if we will consider the overall statistics, then you can see that outside of China, everything does not really look really bright, and in the European zone as well, the Spain. And you know that there's like an anti-record for Spain, and even though it's a big economy, and the US, they have downfall on the lesser level than China. They have got to 150 to 100 billions in the FDI, which is basically nothing for their economy. So basically, we're all expecting for the economy to restore. We're all waiting for the growth to happen, and the overall expectations for the global economy is going to be around 5%, but there's a lot of things that are depending on the pandemic situation. So just wrapping it up, I would like to say when there is some certain uncertainty available, it's critical for us. What do we feel? How do we feel? And how do we organize other people around us as the leaders? And what are we ready? What are the inside expectancies for us? Are we ready to work with challenges? If we are ready to work with challenges, if we believe that all has to be done, and then we'll just see how it goes, then I believe that everything will be good for us. Thank you. So, okay, let me just, you don't think that we will get back to what has used to be before. So we'll be in this hybrid formats, this lockdowns time after time. And now what I believe that, what has been done before is that, and from what I have learned, what I really want to end up is the masks. So where there seems to be, well, at some point of time, yes, we will stop using that because, everything ends. Yes, but, not being that kind of fatalistic, but yes, if there will be successful vaccination, then by the end of 2021, they will have a chance to take the masks down. But what the good things that has happened in 2021, that we have known that we can work remotely, that we can be more flexible, and we have known how critical the corporate culture is, because everything that happens, the good communication and the good tools available are very important. The teams that we have, Zoom, all of the works in small groups, all of these tools of work, that it all works, and it all works well. And you can save some money with some costs, and you can do it more comfortable and more flexible in the schedules of work for your people, and people will be really grateful for you. Well, you have the business trips, or everything's going to be happening in WebEx, in Zoom. I think that we will then think about the tasks that we have. So basically, we know that there is this big problem of the unused liquidity for the Middle East, and they're really looking for some projects in Ukraine. Together with my colleagues, Nadezhda Kaznacheva, we already have been offered to go and discuss. Okay, so you will not have the Zoom. No, well, we have to go through the tests, to all of the requirements to get into there. And yes, we have to go to work. Yes, what can we do? So, okay, all the best for you. Ilya, the next question for you, the creative states. So the question is for you. How have you felt that this idea will be successful? Because you've started your businesses long before the pandemic has started. So is it just a coincidence that it happened like that you have had this successful business model, and all the people, they've got to this online format of work? Or maybe that is just the requirement of time, that time after time the people would get to this kind of formats in time? Well, thank you. I will just start with irony, if I may, because I believe that in our economy, the coronavirus have been existing for a couple of dozen of years already. It's not that just, in this case, how it's existed before the global pandemic, this coronavirus has been affecting your lungs, but have been affecting on all of the other human qualities mostly, like your values, your principles, your consciousness. But being serious, then I would like to say that yes, we have already thought that we were those Blade Runners in some way. So when the pandemic has started, then it was quite clear for us that we've had a punch to our operations as well, but we have restored our capacities in the fastest way because we have a clear understanding of how we can make our product in that way, so it would be considered by our clients, positively considered by our clients. It is something that is even happening inside of our company that is called that basically the attractive comfort. So, having this enhanced comfort, this is the main norm for all of our clients that are working in our network. So, to give them these feelings of really high level comfort, and it really meets the realities that we're currently living in. You remember when in March everyone has said that we're going to be working from home, and work from home is the new black, and everyone have to work remotely. And in the West, and we're lagging behind a little bit, and it really some people, they still believe that the work from home is the right thing to be done, but we believe that work from home is dead. So, the new reality is like working from anywhere, basically. So you can work from wherever you are located at this very moment. And the companies that manage to adapt to this challenge in that way, they've managed to provide this, like Dropbox, for example, a fantastic American company that have changed their offices into the so-called Dropbox studios. So they provided this opportunity for their people to have this face-to-face meeting to communicate, but you cannot create that remotely. You cannot make Tesla working remotely, or SpaceX cannot be made remotely. So just objectively speaking, we know that this is a temporary story. And yes, of course, a lot of people are going to be working remotely still, but working in the offices or working in those places that are called offices, but there will be some kind of new spaces and new understanding of that. This will happen. They will become more of a privilege for people. So that will be the privilege for the people of the future and the people of the present to go to office and to talk to someone, to have your own working space. And I think that is going to be more of a privilege further on than not going to be the everyday reality that we've had before. So we have sort of that, the really fastest way. We have sort of that. We have introduced straight away loads of ideas for our residents, like masks, antiseptics, and all of the other stuff. And we've got it to some kind of a certain absolution. So those frames with the colloids of silver, so that are going to provide the protection for your clothes. This is Cushman and Beckman standard for considering the distance between people. So we did it in the very fast pace, but because our product was of a premium class, and it's not in the context of quality, but in the context of the overall understanding by our residents of what we do. So yes, it's hard for us to call ourselves the co-working because it's kind of a marginal context. We are the operator of the flexible office solutions that are currently, like a very good temporary space. That is the most marginal businesses in the commerce real estate. Yes, because we are showing the fantastics EBITDA. No one can do that like that yet. But, and the people who are close to us by their spirit, then, we don't have a lot of that. But we are now flying high. We have opened the 2 new locations in the time of the pandemic, and your organization has become our residence in one of those locations, and it's very honorable for us. But we have been as well joined by Monobank, Alpha Bank. The real sector has come to us, because before that we were only expecting the IT market to join us. Now we are educating the market, and we have seen the good results already. We have seen that the venturing foundations are already working with us, the advertisement agencies, the business organizations, advertising agencies are working with us. What does it give us the understanding too? that there is a big need for that, for what we are doing. So the classical segment, this office real estate is going to be changing into this kind of formats that you're offering. Yes, I believe that in the next 5 years, the pandemic is going to facilitate this process overall. I do believe that the real estate, they're not going to be managing the office real estate fund, so not going to be even managing the residential houses. The developers will build, but it will be operated by the company as our company is. So they're going to be doing it on a different level. They will provide you with the services, yes. And yes, of course, there is another important aspect here in this case, is that there is a certain deglobalization of the world processes. What do we know by that? It means that the very big scale projects like the WeWork or the Natal that is now going through bankruptcy, these big companies that have been mostly concentrated on the growth, and no one is considering the incomes, no one is considering the sales in the specific locations overall. So this scale and at this level, it already has come up out of this value. I think that there will be certain changes. There will be like the small networks appearing, not in the office real estate, from what we are doing as well. Like take a look at fashion industry, for example. Something that is happening in fashion is a very good indicator of where most of the industries are going to. So there will be the overall trend for the global corporation to shrink down. They're going to lose some shares of the market, but the local actors and local players are going to come to this market share, who will be doing that tailor-made for the players, for the actors in the local markets. We are those local actors, even though that we have some plans to get to Europe as well. We would like to grow by twice. We have 12,000 square meters in our portfolio. We'd like to go to 20,000 square meters. We would like to go to Europe because our format is going to be accepted really nicely there. So overall, I believe that the crisis in our country has made us to, well, of course, everyone has shrunken down. Of course, everyone knows that we have been a period where we have been slightly afraid. But I will be honest with you that much better than a year ago, we understand that our model is something that is currently really used by the market, and we can see that from the side of our residents. And overall, I believe that the future is for those operators as we are. So yeah, Thomas, that's very basically. Thank you very much, Ilya. That's very optimistic. Thank you. We would like wish you all the best for the development of your project, not for this project, but for the other project as well. Let us turn to Pfizer and to the vaccinations issues and the business issues. Speaking on the pharmaceuticals business, from what I've understood, then the business is growing quite in a good way. So like, just prove me wrong if not like that, because there are some people who are really interested in the logistics and the infrastructures of logistics. What do you believe? Whether the logistics and the infrastructure is being built the right way in Ukraine so the high quality vaccines will be available for the final users? Please, the floor is yours. Well, good day, ladies and gentlemen, and dear audience and dear participants here. Like, I'm sorry, but of course, I have had a very different question from the very beginning, because this is not like I do not want to answer some of the issues, because there are some issues I cannot comment upon without, for example, the approval of our medical director, because we're not there is some company that I cannot give you the certain number of any of the products, because even in order to do that, I will have to approve our speeches with our medical workers. We're a fully compliant company in this case. So I'm going to be speaking with what I can say. Because, well, first of all, I'm not a political person, so I'm not going to be saying what you want to hear. I'm sorry for that as well. If you're all very optimistic here, then I must say that I am more of a, evidence-based optimist. I'm closer to the realist approach, if I may say that. Speaking on our company and speaking on our businesses, well, I will say we're saying that all of my colleagues, they have started with 2020 and started with speaking about the plans for 2021 and the further going future. I was lucky to meet one person of the Ukrainian regions, a professor, a very well-known surgeon, the transplantologist surgeon, Igor Hook, wide known in Europe. And he told me, Zoriana, time is non-existent. And I didn't understand what did he meant by that. But the time is non-existent actually, because we are only inventing time because it's much more usual for us. So I'm going to say before the pandemic and after the pandemic, and I'm going to be operating with 2020 or 2021. Of course, it's a challenge. I'm not going to repeat myself. The challenges have been really hard, and we're all people. There are people who did it faster or slower. We all adapted to what we have to deal with. But speaking on some personal conclusions that I have drawn to for myself in this period, that we're all social creatures, and what we lack is the warmth, the smiles, the kisses, the hugs. We are very social creatures. This is the first example. This is the first conclusions. So what we have considered the social networks, this is the imitation of communication, but not communication in its purest. And as a very responsible person, I was really afraid to start the project remotely. I would not say from home, because they have a lot of people who are working from their cars, from where they are located, basically in the moment of work. But I would like to say that yes, the big problem was to get them outside of the office, because they all need socialization. We had a whole line of people wanting to go to the office. The most distinctive people went to the offices. That offices will become the preference and privilege. Yes, but it was harder for us because of the peculiarities of our work. We work with the doctors, with the medical establishment, so we had to be very careful with that. The second conclusion that we can draw out of the pandemic is that, working online and the overall events online, communicating online, selling online, promoting online, it's possible, and it works fine. And I do believe that it's a very good conclusion from the pandemic for all of us. Speaking on our plans, we are a very small market for Pfizer. We're really happy that we're working in this company because, I cannot imagine a better company. And believe me, I'm working in the pharmaceutical businesses for more than 30 years. But what do you think is like that? You haven't seen the other companies. No, I'm not saying that I have been working for 30 years in Pfizer. I have the overall experience in the pharmaceutical sphere for 30 years. But on the other side, there are some challenges, because you have to motivate people, and you say but what can be better? How you can grow better? No, but it's really interesting for me. Why are you so excited about that? Well, it's just first of all, it is the aim of the country, the aim of the company is not only based in words. Every company has a mission, but every hour action, every hour day of work, every hour employee is the representative of our missions. So those are the breakthrough that makes the lives of our patients better. And when you have this goal, and it's not only in paper, but its goal is a part of you, it really motivates you. This kind of pathos, feelings of pathos should not be developed because it is there ingrained in the structure of work for your company. But we are the small market. I mean, the Ukrainian market is a very small market for Pfizer. And, if, for example, the big developed markets that have the social insurance or the reimbursements for the medicines for, I'm sorry, I can't recall how it's called in Ukrainian. Yes, there is the term reimbursement, let it be this way. But this is something that goes, it goes out of the patient's pockets mostly, unfortunately. So for the innovation-based companies, and this is going to be very problematic. Problematic why? Because all of the new things, they are much more expensive than the middle-range products. But on the other hand, those are the new chances for them people to improve their lives and sometimes even save the people's life. And once again, getting back to my previous opinion, if for the big markets, taking out 1-2 molecules a year, those launches of these molecules a year, it's an event that we would like to have 8 launches this year. The small markets, we are just like the rescue rangers. Then, basically we are really courageous to do that. We're always ready to help. So basically, yes, what we have seen that there are some unmet needs, and there is our mission for that. We have to register this molecule. When you are launching the new products to the market, it's not the source for the income, it's the source of investment, and you have to spend a lot of money to get the doctors acquainted, all of the community with new nosologies, with new protocols, with new molecules, with new formulations, with all of that. And because this is very, very precise work, speaking on the registration, speaking on this whole the complex of events. And by the way, are you going to be vaccinated? Because you have the closest access to the vaccines. I mean, like all of the people working in Pfizer. So once again, I'm not a political figure. I will just say it in this way. I will just say everything that I'm allowed to say without approving it with the other services in our companies. Of course, the vaccination is going to be happening. Is going to happen, and the vaccination is highly needed. And I will just have to tell you that the situation will be improved by not the vaccine itself, but the vaccination overall. And it's a very hard logistical process. When Mr. Shmigal has been here, I wanted to ask him whether do we have any plans, for example, to have some certain e-passport for vaccination. Why? Because all of the vaccines available right now, they require at least 2 vaccinations, and you have to track it in some way. And if you have those vaccinations, then it would be very good for you to have those proofs in the phone, for example, to have this data. If you would like to keep on moving all around the world, we'll have these meetings with Mr. Stepanov tomorrow. I think we will ask him about that. Yes, of course, I will be really grateful if you will ask him about that as well. I know, just you might not answer to this question, but still the question from the audience, whether Ukraine is building the infrastructure for the logistics of for the vaccines, do we need the network that provides the temperature minus 70 degrees? I would like to say that yes, it's much easier than everyone imagines currently in Ukraine, because basically this vaccine is going to be supplied in those thermal boxes that actually provide you with this temperature. And we have 5 weeks when this thermal box are supporting this temperature regime. So it does not require any kind of additional refrigerators, or it doesn't require additional equipment, because the FedEx provides this overall logistics for the vaccines. So we don't know how it's going to be happening in Ukraine, because we can't start the very detailed communication because the product is not registered in Ukraine. We're doing everything possible to get the registration as fast as possible, but you can see what is the overline with this dossier. Because, I would like to say that in this way. I disagree. I'm not going to be commenting about all of the vaccines, but, I'm slightly connected to that. I disagree with the comments that are saying that this is the geopolitical factors or political factors, that this is about the nationalistic factors. I will just be honest in that, yes, this is an issue that has been of the risks perceptions of all of the governments when they have conducted this agreements in June, in July, only when the second stage has started. So, you should have done it slightly faster. I think everyone knows that, because, well, yes, that's it. But we're investing a lot of efforts so that this vaccine would reach Ukraine. The only thing that I may say right now that we're currently having the negotiations and contracting once again, that we have hopes, the chances are good. Thank you very much. Timothy, you wanted to add up something to that? You have to just start speaking. So, when you're going to have the meeting with Stepanov, you can just tell him that we can include this passport to DIA, and that's it. Yes, it can be done. I'll be honest with you. Speaking on DIA, I've tried to install DIA myself, but it required the bank account for private bank. And I don't have an account in private bank, so it means that I cannot use DIA, or maybe I'm a naive user. Yeah, there are other opportunities, but you know that I have seen some certain discrimination. I don't have the time to open an account in this bank, so you have to consider that as well. Yes, it had already been improved. Yes, it's just that you can go through this portal. Overall, DIA has to identify you in some certain way. If it doesn't identify you, I have my accession codes. Yes, but you have the signature. If you have the e-signature, then it doesn't have to be the private bank. Maybe you will have like an APA working there, so maybe there will be some other banks or what. But like, I'm not saying that it's an ideal mechanism. I'm just saying that you can practically do, and in a fast pace, theoretically, it would be very good to have the e-passport that will give you the vaccines. Maybe not that, but some vaccines for the future. We can have legislations about that. We can have a ministry of vaccination supply. I'm not saying that you have to do that. No, but what I wanted to say that there is a theory of what would be good to be done, and there is a practice of what you can do in the fastest pace, and it will be working there. So this 8,000, no one has believed that it will be paid to anyone at all. Everyone thought that it will be paid through the services of the social support, and they've told us that we cannot process this number of people in a year. Further, he said that they can process up to 2-3 minutes. The system will not be working in the 2 weeks, but the system has broke down. The system has broken down at the first stage. No, we had a good luck buffer, but it wasn't buffer. That's the same for the users. No, but this is a bit different. No, this is the new interpretation. No, but we can get back to that. It might not be really often. Not a single country was able to do that. I'm not criticizing you. No, it's just no one's criticizing. No, I'm not speaking about the criticizing. I'm just saying that in the US, still, they are given the checks physical. In Ukraine, you can do that in 2 clicks, but we have a very strong IT. Yes, but it might work for the e-passport of vaccinations as well. 100% for that. That would be very, very good. You can offer to Mr. Stepanov. It might work as well. Yes, we will mention that. It has to be done. Yes. But, it will be not good for them not to do the reference that it's not concerning him. It's up to Fedorov. No, but even if he will does it, then yes, we can address it to him. If you would like to have the good results, yes, then when there's going to be the meeting with Mr. Stepanov, you can ask him this question publicly. That is going to be the anchor. Then it's going to be the public discussion. Then you will have to talk to Mr. Fedorov with that, for the Minister Fedorov with that. He will get engaged, but if he will be engaged, then it will be a hard mobility. If that will not work, you can concern it to our office. We will coordinate that. But the only realistic approach to the e-passport and vaccination for it to be done this year will be through DIA. Yes, thank you. Very good idea. Yes, we're already generating the ideas as well. Okay, so it's not only it's not that we're going to introduce these new products and these new formulations together with the Kiev School of Economy. We have developed this project, and we are getting with information to all of the stakeholders, and we are voicing out that even at this current level of finances support, let's be real, we're not a very rich country. We do not have these big resources that they have in Europe, but still, under this level of the financial support that has currently been held, you can still provide the access to the innovative products only by improving the cost structure and taking down some of the costs that do not give us no added value in the medical sphere. And I do hope that together, with all of our efforts, we will be able to improve the lives of our patients. Yes, thank you. I know that you might not answer this question, but still, about the vaccines. Do you earn a lot on the vaccine? This is a global business, because I know everyone are in the line for the vaccine. Well, I have to say that right now, when we started to produce the vaccine, Pfizer has opened all of the stages of the research, that was online and transparent, so the community have had the access to that. We had this common language, and we've shared all of our successes and all of our fails. Speaking on the financial component, I haven't seen it yet. But I believe that right now, when we're working on this vaccine, it was not about that at all. Because working on this vaccine, we were speaking about saving humanity, but not some kind of business projects to be launched. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have two participants left and 2 opinions left, at the very least. Vadim Sidorok, logistics. Yes. What good things will you tell us this year? Okay, let us start with last year, because basically we're working with the express deliveries, and we have to provide a connection for Ukrainian businesses with international with the 220 countries of the world. And technical point of view, last year has not been problematic for us. Every year we have our own Boeing 737 that can be replaced by Boeing 537. But in order for it to fly, we have to collect the cargo. We have to protect the safety for the people, and that was the most important issue for us last year, when the pandemic has just started and when the lockdown has been started. Yes, we had some issues, and we have some global issues in order to transform the call center, the back office, to the homework, our carriers, I do believe that's basically there was a very hard task for us of how to organize the transportation. And, we can't get people into the cargoes, but it was really important for us to cover all of the transportation that we had, the higher transportation that we had to get people to work. And then during the springtime, what was really interesting, we didn't have a single case of the virus appearing, maybe because some of the cases between our subcontractors, but we have not a single case of the disease. I think that because of the overall lockdown, and I think that, yes, we have to understand that 30% of our businesses, they are connected to the collecting the deliveries from the hospitals. Those are mostly the clinical research materials. And so each of the hospitals, we have developed a certain algorithm on how do we do that and how do we make sure that all of our employees will not be in risks positions. That was the main case for us. We've learned how to do that. We've learned how to deal and how to provide the safety of our employees. But still, overall, even though we tried to use the main safety measures, we had some times when we had 10 or 15 people ill with COVID-19. But what we have mentioned, what we have known, all the people, they have families, they have relatives, and that mostly the COVID has been attained in their domestic environments, not in their workspace. For us, it was very important to understand how can we stop the process. Only with constant testings. When we have started the testings, you have tested based on the DHL expenses. Yes, the very first thing. Yes, we had every 2 or 3 days, depending on the groups of work, and we had around €500,000 for that. But this is something that was really worth that, because otherwise we could see what is happening, not to say in the competitors, but we have seen what was going on in our colleagues in our different companies who were not able to do the same because of the numbers of their companies, and they had to turn stop the businesses. And the testing, that is something that really helped us in months and a half to get the level of diseases to 2-3 people a month. And in recent couple of weeks, we don't have not a single person with COVID-19. So you started it from August. We started the testings from August 2020, where the first symptoms appeared. We were really surprised because we have thought that all of our employees, they're all well protected with masks and so on and so forth. No one has been protected, and the overall growth of the numbers has also been seen in our employees as well. 80% of people are symptomless, so people would never know about that. So when in August we've had this blind test for the antibodies, we had 100 our employees. 12 people have already had these antibodies. Only one person has known that they have had a pneumonia in the end of January, and the level of the antibodies was quite high, more than 1 on the corresponding tests. But the case has happened in the end of January. And there were 8 people who didn't even notice that something happened to them in this way. So for us, as for a very contact-based company, that was very important for us to keep on having this constant testing in place, even though we will continue doing that, because at any moment there can be the return of the pandemic. Speaking of businesses, but the testings are doing that in the lab. Yes, no, we are inviting the experts to our locations. There are some certain groups so we have identified additional tests are needed for the groups. We have an agreement with the labs. They have a couple of points all over Kiev, and our employees they go there and they have the tested there. So this is the only opportunity for them. But if we will consider the experience of the countries that were able to localize successfully the viruses only because of the extensive testings, because the behaviors will still be there. You can protect yourself with the mask, but no one wears a mask at home. I can see that Andrei would like to comment upon that as well. So we had a life hack on that. We had the life hack on that that we have launched in April 2020. We had this infectious audit for all of our assets. We have take a look at our business processes and change them where it's possible. And we have been very surprised in a couple of months by the results of it. First of all, we have had a much easier story with this COVID-19. We didn't have the disruption in our business processes due to COVID. But in the recent 3 months, we have seen that there is an overall decreased level of the COVID-19 levels by 3 times, by 10 times than before the COVID has started. So it really works when you are optimizing it and analyzing it. Yes, business-wise, you can divide our businesses in different directions, but we're working mostly with B2B segments. So we are supporting businesses. That is something why we are working here. This is the main reason that gave us the opportunity for a daily for our daily opportunities to have connection with our daily hub within Leipzig. And the second part of it is our daily research, medical research and examinations and testings. We are working with the dry ice, working with those boxes, and I do hope they're going to be flying soon to our country as well. And we're working in the B2C segment, a very insignificant B2C, because from our side, there are mostly the businesses are the SMEs, the private producers, handmade producers, and on the other side to the size of the customers, those are the international customers mostly. So yes, the first half a year in 2020 was very hard for us. We have seen the overall shrinking of the B2B sector, and the medical examinations as well has been shrinking because the hospitals could not have so many patients served because all of the resources have been allocated to COVID-19 prevention. But starting from June, we have felt the growth for the B2C segment. Those was not the incoming sales from incoming parcels from China and US to Ukraine. That was the sales for the internet platforms, the exports of our producers, and I'm mentioning the producers, the companies and private people. Speaking about the thousands cents, and I do believe that it was something mirroring the overall situation that happened all over the world. Because you might know that the best of all, the logistics and the post and the delivery companies have been surviving the pandemics in the best cases. So if you even took a look at China, that's, I believe in April, out of the whole, they have 3,000 tons of delivery products that have to be delivered. China does not buy, so we have to take the empty planes to provide the delivery of 3,000 tons. There's 2025 Boeing 777. So the US, up till August, they are starting to have 60% more internet deliveries than the average calculated level. Yes, the challenges in logistics and delivery have been really harsh. So yes, we were mostly the sending country, not the recipient. We were more sending more than receiving, which is actually creates a very comfortable basis for our work further on. And if we were speaking on whether we have felt and what has been the most the harder thing about the international express delivery was the cut down of the commercial air flights. Yes, Ukraine has been works properly with us. We have our own plane, so we have been the transit hub for Caucasian countries and for some countries of the Middle Asia when we have these commercial flights conducted, like for example for the Fly EUA. So that is basically starting from the spring. We have those flights taken down, and yes, we felt that there is in the overall scale of our plane, and we have only felt the problem with Saturday because we use the Saturday for using our commercial flights to provide the deliveries. But we have had this decision to have additional investments provided and to launch our own additional flights. We didn't understand what will be the overall scale of its filled, whether it's going to be filled in, but the nature does not like empty spaces, so we have filled it in a faster space. So yes, we have the experience of how to work with that for the company globally, for the DHL company and for the Dolce Post DHL group company that owns us. There is an important issue of whether we can invest into those volumes that the company has attracted, and those are really big volumes. Those are additional planes that have never been there before. We do not have these planes just to take them, and now we have already bought 20 additional planes, especially the passenger planes that are being now re-equipped to provide the cargo deliveries. But this is the issue, whether those volumes will stay with us when the pandemic will cease to be, and what is going to be transferred back to the overall passenger and the commercial lines. So there are some challenges, but my most important index is for Ukraine. I'm responsible for the business making in Ukraine, and the main thing that we're getting ready to is to deliver the vaccines. So Ukraine, based on the logistics and delivering the vaccines, we're not going to be mentioning the prices of the vaccines that we're working with, but we would like to say that 70, 80 degrees for us is absolutely possible. It's real for us. Logistics-wise, there's no difficulties in that, only when we have the cargo plane. If we have a cargo plane flying through the country, there will be not a problem for the country because we have this dry ice inside that has some limitations to that. So basically, logistically wise, we're in the green zone, and we have already seen that every day we're receiving the updates on how the vaccines go, where they're flying. Right now, I haven't seen that yet, but we have all these instructions of how can we work additionally, what are the safety and temperature regimes. So all of the vaccines that applies to us, it's very easy for us if we speak about the logistics and deliveries. So this kind of these 80 degrees that you mentioned, that might be frightening for someone. They should not do that for you, because even at the warehouse does not require to be kept in the freezers, in the refrigerators. There is the professional packaging there. It is based on the logistics, it's one thing, but for the final customers, for the hospitals that will actually they're provided to the hospitals, it's all very real. We are all waiting for that. The only thing we're waiting for the vaccination to start, and basically as businesses, I think we're mostly thinking when the commercial parties will be delivered as well, because for me and we have the young employees who will not be in the first wave of vaccination. We have the average age of 25 years. And by the way, are you going to provide the expenses for vaccination? Yes, we always provide for that. So right now we have the vaccination against the flu, and we basically have the global campaign on vaccinating against the flu, and we have communicated the importance of that. But 60% that we have covered, even though we have had a very good high quality vaccines, people are not very ready for that. We are already turning off your mic. No, it's not just the problem of Ukraine. It's a global problem overall, but we really didn't have this mass demonstration against vaccination. This is something that I still cannot get, as if some people are forcing you to get vaccinated. But still, we have these opinions in the world, and I do believe that those numbers that have been voiced out is 40% of people who would like to be vaccinated, and those fakes that have appeared in the media, and there has been a lot of unclear black negative PR that has been launched by unknown people. I think it influenced as well, even though the global statistics says that already millions and millions of people have been vaccinated and they feel great, and I think that this is our hope for all of us to get the masks off, our hope to be saved. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for them. We have one segment that we wanted to cover, the fastly growing segment, not only the post operators, IT. So how is going on with you, Taras? How is going on with you and your businesses? Yes, and yes, thank you very much for the question. Yes, basically, those expectations that we have seen in March, they didn't prove to be right. So, when the IT industry, they're going through this COVID period in a very good way. There were a couple of reasons for that, because first of all, by design, the IT industry is global. And based on that, we have been working in the remote regime for the couple of recent decades. And we have been innovative in our online regimes constantly. We have this opportunity to integrate the teams from many different locations in order to have this opportunity to be very close to our clients. And when the COVID came, basically the infrastructure of our company and the processes have been ready. The final question was whether we can cover the final mile, whether the people working at home, they have the internet that they need. And it turns out that everyone has the needed internet in Ukraine. Unlike India, where India is one of the leaders of the IT services supply, but they have been through some difficulties to that. Working in them IT parks and everything's okay. When people are asked to work from home and they're not ready to work from home. Another point that we might underline as well in this case, that COVID hasn't stopped the global innovation. And I believe that it actually improved the innovation and forcing the innovation and the digital transformations of businesses. If we can take a look at the industry that really follows the overall trends and innovations, then we have been at the plateau last year. The second quarter last year, we have been at the plateau, and all of the processes they have restored starting from the Q3. Right now, when we have discussed it with many companies, the number of the vacancies is reaching the record level. We do not have the prepared talents in Ukraine. And the final trend, why it was easy for us to go through this pandemic period, was in some way, how we can tell it, this a total entrepreneurship in the IT industries. We have seen thousands of IT companies that have been created and have been transformed. There is this agile approach, the lack of regulation, and even this innovative approach where the only sustainability and stability that the company has is the constant innovation. And when you live through this kind of mindset, the companies are easily transformed to any of new challenges. What kind of threats and challenges we have? First of all, working in online sphere, we understand that the online gives you some certain economical benefits. You can save the office payments, you can save the transportation time. So, you can switch from your house to your working place straight away. The main challenge is the culture. We do not have the certain solutions how to support this culture and how to integrate the people into the work of the companies. Because for the recent year, in our companies, there have been at least 30% of the new employees who do not have their own working place in the company. They have never been working in the office of our company, but we have been working with them straight away, and we have to provide the high level of those innovation services and solutions that we provide. And the second issue for us is how to keep on our people developed. We constantly invest into the human development, and human development is mostly about the communication, the constant communication. And this is yet another challenge that we should search for, that we should consider. Another challenge that the industry currently has is education, and I would say the global education and global training. If the industry is competitive, globally competitive, then the IT education has to be globally competitive as well. And currently, we have seen how easily the company are transforming the alumni of the university to the employees of the company through the corporate universities. We have as well incorporated this process when the IT universities work in online regimes, and we are becoming competitive if we're the alumni of our universities. But when we are speaking whether we are competitive for the graduates of our schools, then this competition should be covered by the university, and there is a global competition going on. I cannot say that the state universities, they really would like to be globally competitive for the school graduates. But I have seen many private programs, many private universities. For what they've been doing, they're working on the global competitive level. And what that's very good for all of us. And those private universities, they are in some way the trendsetters overall. The Ukrainian Catholic University that is based in Lviv, in the local education, it just shows that you can work in a different way, and that's also very, very positive. Okay, but what to do with talents? You say that Ukraine lacks talents, so how are you engaging the talents from abroad? I will just put it this way. Ukraine has enough of talents. We don't have the highly qualified people, prepared people. So our task is to invest the talent development, the qualification development. If we will consider the IT industry by now, then we have around 200,000 people working in the IT industry. Can we do 300, 400,000? Yes, of course we can do that. We have enough talents for that. Every successful company has to be the global company straight away. In Ukraine, in the long-term companies, then Ukraine do not work globally. So we're also trying to work globally, and we're trying to use those talents that we currently have in the global markets and to adapt it to our talents. And as a result, we're going to build a stronger presence. If we're only speaking about our, we have now like 6 development centers in Poland, in Bulgaria. Of course, we are having a lot of attention to be present to the markets where we sell. Western Europe, Singapore, USA, Middle East. Okay, but if we will consider the salaries, because people usually say that in the IT businesses there are really high salaries offered. If we will speak in the global, qualified and talented staff that you hire, do you have a difference in the salaries that you pay, or Ukrainian salaries that you pay in Ukraine? They are more or less the same with the international IT salaries. Okay, I will put it this way, that Ukrainian salaries, for example, speaking on those goods that you can receive for that salary in Ukraine, that they are even higher if we will consider the welfare that you can provide for yourself. In the absolute digits, it's lower. Every time we're speaking to the clients, okay, because the price is an important factor for the clients, but when we're working in different locations, there are different factors applied. For example, when we're working in Poland is a part of the European Union, and there is a request for GDPRs. There are some numbers of projects that we cannot get to Ukraine based on the GDPR request. But if we have some project that can be partly done in Ukraine, partly done in Poland, then we can have a full project, and it will be good order for the Ukrainian counterparts and for the Polish counterparts as well. What is the most comfortable country for you to work into? Or which country is the most comfortable for you? What is the position of Ukraine in this global situation? I will just put it this way, that in the recent years, Ukraine has been acknowledged as a country of the really high reputation, that this is a country with a good reputation in the IT talents and the IT direction. This is something that has been outlined more and more. It is the easiest way for us to work in Ukraine because we are the company that has been born in Ukraine, because basically we have been for 30 years working in Ukraine. But one of our strategical direction is the so-called Go Global direction. So step by step, we're trying to work in other countries. We're trying to engage the culture of other countries into our corporate culture, and to be, as what we usually say, that to be the great place to work, not to be the best employer in Ukraine, but to be one of the best employers in Poland, in the US, in Germany, to provide the best services. You know, there is a big competition for people right now. And if we will speak honestly, if we're working on the global markets, then we understand that the ultimate goal is to fill the client's needs. But in order to reach this ultimate goal, the final goal, you have to have the best talents in your company. And the whole world is now competitive for the best talents. The one who will win the fight for the best of talents, they will be the most successful for working with your clients. So when you're working at each market, you have to create some certain magic in the company, some certain corporate culture so that the best talents would like to work with you. And this magic has to be sustained. And this is the key a task for IT, for any kind of economy, basically. Why the best people should come to work with you and should join your magic. Okay, that's very cool comparison, your corporate culture and magic. Thank you. We should use it further on. Okay, speaking of Belarus, because basically there are some changes that could have happened in Belarus, but what are these Belarusian companies that whether they have started to come to Ukrainian markets, because we have had these rumors that are going to move here, whether it improves the competition on Ukrainian market or whether it adds up the highly qualified staff or the talents for Ukrainian markets. Now, when the events in Belarus took place, for us, the IT Association, together with the government, we have done everything that is possible from our side to be open for the Belarus companies and the IT engineers from Belarus so that would have easy access and easy opportunities to move to Ukraine and work in Ukraine. And a lot of people have actually came here. I do not have the final numbers because I know that there are companies that have even moved. Whether it gives us really the macroeconomical effects, I cannot say that straight away. I don't have these numbers. Okay, dear friends, I will have to thank you. At this said, it's a very interesting information. It was very interesting for me to listen to all of you and to hear all of those insights from all of you. I would like to thank you on behalf of all of the members of the European Business Associations. And I would like to wish all of us to have the best of health, to keep on being enthusiastic, to give this opportunity to keep creating magic that will be the win-win situation for all of us, to go through these interesting times and to become even stronger. Thank you very much and have the best of the day. Thank you.